Okay, the Mesquite Citizen Journal is here today with Councilman GRapson, who's been in office just about 100 days. And we are doing a series with each of the councilmen and the mayor to go back through some of the activities and some of the things that they've done over the last 100 days. So George, now that you've been in office for 100 days, how does it look from the inside, and how does it kind of differ from what you were campaigning for?
That's 100 days isn't very long, so it's difficult to make a real qualitative judgment on the position itself in 100 days. But I can tell you that there's a lot of thought that needs to be put into every single thing. There's a lot of research involved in as you can see in the technical reviews, people ask questions. You need to get more detail. I think it's a little more technical and a little more time consuming, particularly when you start traveling to Las Vegas for board meetings and commission meetings and so forth. And what you realize is that I think what I got out of this at the end of the day is, and this is maybe a touchy subject, but it's worth more money than they pay people to do. It truly is. It's not a free job in a sense that it has a lot of responsibility. It takes a lot of time to do it right. And if you eliminate the pay or keep cutting pay in the council, and I'm not advocating raising it or doing anything with it, I'm just saying that if you get it to the point where it's not worth intelligent people, ambitious people, dedicated people to run, you're going to wind up, as I said in one of my campaign speeches or campaign things, the Mesquite HOA. And that may or may not be good. In my opinion, it's not. It's people that are all in one group, retired, all that have enough money, all that have enough time, and that eliminates 80% of the population. And then we are no longer represented by our peers. So I think that's the biggest difference is the time, the effort, the energy, and I think it's not so much even criticism or any of the speculation that the press or the public makes. It's more or less trying to do the right thing and get the right answer, so you can at least justify what you did. Yeah. And it's fun.
Okay. We'll talk about some of the changes that you've been a part of, because we've been keeping a list at the Mesquite Citizen Journal, and it's getting quite long for 100 days. But you've been a part of issues that came up in the campaign, like tech reviews, opening them up to the public. As part of the council, you brought back the school crossing guards. You rescinded the code of conduct. Over the last 100 days, the list is quite long. So talk about some of those particular campaign issues that you have been a part of in the last 100 days.
Be happy to. The first thing is I want to, as I said earlier, give credit to where credit is due. And Mayor Weir has been very aggressively making sure that we're staying on top of the issues that we talked about. He's not advocating a particular direction. He's just saying, this is what we need to get out in front of the public. This is what we need to discuss. And I applaud him for that, because it takes a singular focus. Otherwise, for me to think of something, it's not the same as, I don't have the same power, so to speak. So he's done a really good job of that. And I think, and we all agreed at the very beginning that we need to make sure that we listen to what the public said. There was a wholesale change in the electorate, and there was a reason for that. And I think we all heard the message, and we said, okay, open, honest, period. Open and honest. Let's do it. We can do this. Yeah. And so it starts with the little things that aggravated people in the beginning. And so as you start looking at those little aggravations, and one of them was the technical review, which I never went to one before, but I have a hard time believing anything nefarious went on, anything backdoor or backroom went on. But the public wanted to be part of it. Make them part of it. Who cares? Yeah. Let's just take that notion out of play. And the code of conduct. It was a big thorn in, whether the reality of it was as bad as the, I guess, the notion of it or the idea of it.
One of the council meetings, you spoke about the perception surrounding the code of conduct.
Exactly, and so if that's a problem, get rid of it. If we have problems in future meetings where some code or some decorum is perpetually violated, then we need to relook at some of the provisions of the code, and I'm fine with that. Okay. But in the meantime, I'm an adult. I think we're all adults. We can do this until we can prove to ourselves we can't.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
You know, Chief Tanner was in my mind an easy deal. He was capable. He was qualified. He's done a good job as the interim chief. He worked his way up from a K-9 unit and a correctional officer. He's proven himself. We don't need to go, as I said, fishing off another pond. We've got fish in our own pond.
Right.
Let's give him a chance.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay.
We can fix it.
Okay.
We're going to look at some changes in the job description or the ordinance with respect to the city manager and what their duties are. There's no major significant changes, but it puts the council and the mayor back in the loop a little bit more and a little more responsibility on their shoulders. Okay. So we can no longer say, well, he did it.
Right.
We can say, we did it, and then let the public decide whether we did it right or wrong. Okay. So I think a lot of these things are common sense. I think a lot of them are pretty benign, but from a perception standpoint, have a big impact.
Okay.
I mean, if we're shopping in Mesquite, we might as well hire in Mesquite.
And I thought was a very good point. You mentioned during the campaign that you were very concerned about the city's financial situation. How does it look to you now? You mentioned just before we started the tape about some of the money is now just now coming in from the previous budget year. Is that correct?
Yeah. I know specifically the LVCBAs, which is a large part of our allocation. That's the state allocation and so forth. Those monies are found. Those monies are accumulated throughout the year. They're collected, and there's a lag between the end of the year and the actual period where they were collected and the time they were collected from the period they were earned, so to speak, and accumulated and then distributed by formula or however. So some of those had just come in. I think the final ones. So we're just now finishing up the final financials for the 2011 fiscal year. I mean, I think the audit was done, but there was some question of the exact amount of what we were going to get from what entity.
Okay.
I believe that we've gotten more than we expected, and we've spent less, and that would include July, August, and through whatever August, I think. So it's looking better, but a large part of that is due to expense reduction and control. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is this council is very conscious about the consultants, how many we have and what we pay them, and they are too. I know we've met with all of the consultants, each of the councilmen have, to make sure we're very clear on what it is they do, how they do it, and what the benefit is to Mesquite. And there has to be some fiscal benefit at the end of the day, otherwise there's no point in doing it. Right. And a lot of it is, it doesn't directly come in as money that they've found, but they keep us abreast of legislation, federal and state legislation perhaps, that says, okay, this could be detrimental to the city. We need to make sure that we are heard as a unified voice with other cities or other jurisdictions. So otherwise it would take somebody full-time and then some to be, and this means being at the committee hearings, at the, in Capitol Hill, in Washington, D.C., and in sitting in through the sessions, and then the committee meetings during the off years of the Nevada session. So it's a time-consuming thing. There's professionals who do it far better than anybody here could, at probably a much less cost or effective cost. They spread it out over many clients. So but that was a big deal. We needed to make sure that we could justify our few consultants that we have on an ongoing basis. We haven't had any projects come up that we've commissioned any new consultants, I don't think, and so we haven't had to cross that bridge yet.
Okay.
But again, I go back to a cost benefit, you know, it's real simple. You look at what the cost is. Is there an alternative way to do it internally that's cheaper? And if not, and then at the end of the day, what's the downside of screwing it up?
Yeah.
As opposed to having experts involved. So from a finance perspective, we're very cautious of that. We're putting more things out to bid, even if they're professional service contracts that don't require bids and by statute aren't required.
Uh-huh.
You look at the professional credibility or credentials. We're even putting those out to bid
Wow.
to make sure that we get the best at the lowest. And again, His Honor is very adamant about that.
Yeah.
And we are proposing some changes in what the level of discretionary spending is with the city manager, that things come to council for approval at a lower dollar threshold.
Oh, okay.
And really not because we don't trust anything the city manager has done or is doing. It's just simply, let's stay in the loop. And it may become cumbersome. It may be, well, we buy paper or we buy copy paper by the tens of grosses, you know, and so you want every invoice that, no. You know, so
Yeah.
we're gonna feel that one out too.
Okay.
So that may be a thing. So we're just, hopefully the economy will grace us with a continued upswing in room rates and occupancy and so forth, and
Yeah.
which translates to more dollars and sales tax revenue and so forth. I don't believe we can bet on the come,
Yeah.
but on this expense side, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Okay. In the past, developing budgets and making spending decisions, what you just were talking about, seem to have been more like a seat of the pants process. And at various times, the mayor has talked about improving these processes and the spending decisions by using quantitative measures. Are you ready to explore that approach, or do you have some different ideas?
No, I think a quantitative approach is right. I mean, you have to have some standard of measure. At the moment, anything that's budgetary that comes to me is, I just take the cost-benefit analysis and look at some alternatives, look at the need, look at what would happen if we didn't spend it.
Uh-huh.
And that may be seat of the pants, but I think the quantitative thing was a reference more or less to job performance and so forth. I mean, a lot of these budget things, you got to pay the power bill.
Right.
You got to pay the bonds. You got to pay. So there's certain things that just don't have, you know, there's no quantitative measurement involved. It's just simply,
Right.
It's like your house. You got to pay the electricity. So, but when it comes to personnel decisions, when it comes to retention and raises and so forth, you know, of course, working within the union guidelines and so forth and the contracts that exist, yeah, there perhaps is a way to more accurately measure and perhaps base decisions on that. And I think the mayor's working on that.
Okay.